Shabbat Shalom and Chag Sameach. Welcome to this online Tikkul Leyl Shavuot, organized by two flagship communities in the progressive movements in London, the Liberal Jewish Synagogue and West London Synagogue. We are delighted to welcome guests from our own communities, as well as from Northwood and Pinner Liberal Synagogue and Southgate Progressive Synagogue, as well as other communities and international guests from the World Union for Progressive Judaism. And we look forward to an all-night exciting program to atone for the fact that our ancestors fell asleep on the night that the Torah was given on Mount Sinai. Our special guest this evening is Rabbi Sergio Bergman, who joins us all the way from Buenos Aires in Argentina, where he was born. He has been a pharmacist and chemist, a politician, social activist, and community leader. From a not particularly religious background, although he attended an art school in Argentina and learned Yiddish in the 4th grade, he is now president of the World Union for Progressive Judaism, representing nearly 1,300 congregations based in 40 countries and representing 1.8 million Jews. Rabbi Bergman has an impressive array of academic qualifications and was the first rabbi ever elected to public office in Argentina and was elected to represent the city at the Nations Congress. In 2015, President Mauricio Macri named him Minister of the Environment and Sustainable Development, a position he held until 2019. He has been named as one of the world's 100 most influential leaders in the fight against climate change and is a great believer in going out onto the street in order to transform society. Rabbi Bergman founded Memoria Activa and went out every Monday morning at 10 a.m. for 2 years to stand in front of the Supreme Court in order to put into very real practice the Torah teaching, Tzedek, Tzedek Tirdof, justice, justice shall you pursue. Please welcome Rabbi Sergio Bergman. Sergio.
Alex, thank you.
It's lovely to have you with us, Sergio. I want to begin by asking, where do you find your inspiration and your energy and your determination to accomplish what you've accomplished in your life so far?
You know, I think that part of our Jewish identity is to respect our master, not only like we read in the Torah, just this morning when we received the 10 commandments that we need to honor our parents. And all my inspiration comes first of all from my parents, from my family. They teach me how to pursue dreams and to translate it in concrete projects. Also my teachers, my rabbis. We have here in Argentina a very long tradition of liberal rabbis that belongs also to reform, progressive, conservative rabbis. One of them was Marshall Mayer, Zichrono Livracha. He was part of the championship of the human rights when I was a teenager. We have here in Argentina the military process. And he, together with my rabbi from my Reform congregation that I'm born, that I make my bar mitzvah, Rabbi Roberto Gretz, an Argentinian that became a rabbi in HUC in Cincinnati and come back to Argentina. And Roberto, together with Marshall, they founded the Jewish movement from human rights. And this kind of people was for me the role models to teach me that the Torah is not only a text, the Torah is the real inspiration to make our own interpretation in our new context. And also my rabbi in my community, Ruben Nissenbaum, that he teach me that the main inspiration to become a rabbi is not to be a priest, is to be a teacher. And then the education, the Jewish approach of our roots, that means to be faithful to our roots, to learn Torah, to learn our sage, but to be open-minded, not to repeat, to recreate, to give a new interpretation that can be relevant for our kids, for our children, for the new generation. And this inspiration led me from becoming a rabbi in Argentina, inside my local community, my reform movement. But in some part of my personal story, an Argentinian story, I feel that I need to go out from the synagogue and to lead not only my community, also the society that needs a Jewish voice, that we don't have to hesitate, that going out is not to lose our identity.
Sergio, your grandparents came from Lodz, or Łódź as it should be pronounced, in Poland.
Yeah.
And you told me when we spoke a few days ago that your parents had embraced a secular, socialist and Zionist consciousness. But tell us a little bit about your early upbringing, the early years of your career. You were a chemist and a pharmacist. And at what point you decided, what made you become a rabbi, change complete direction?
Yeah, that's right. Because for me to be a pharmacist at biochemistry was for me a profession. But in some part of my life, I make the decision to follow my vocation. It's like a call that you receive, that is not rational. It's that you feel that this is the thing that you must do. Also, I need to recognize that was not only my choice. Everything that I am doing, not behind, but in the front, is leading Gabi, my wife. She told me, this is for you so important, and you feel that this your call, your vocation, we are ready to leave everything. I leave my shop and the lab in quality control. I was the director of quality control in a lab. We sell our apartment and we take our little daughter, Maya. She was this time only 2 years old, and we moved to Jerusalem, to Israel, to study in Israel and to receive my rabbinical ordination. But like you said, the vocation comes from my training to be a practitioner in the community building and in Jewish education. For me, a rabbi is an educator, and this came from me from the very beginning. And I'm so grateful that I have the role models to pursue this vision and also my vocation to become a rabbi.
Now, you were ordained in 1994, and when you started your rabbinic life, you were working as a rabbi at Emmanuel congregation. In the very same year, there was the bombing of Amya, the Jewish community center, that killed 85 people and injured hundreds. In the 26 years since that suicide bomb attack, no one has ever been brought to justice. How did you, Sergio, choose to respond to this tragedy?
It was really a tragedy. And you know that after the Shoah was the major anti-Semitic terroristic attack that we have in the diaspora. Was really so hard for us because 2 years early, of the bombing of the AMIA, we have the bombing of the Israel embassy in Buenos Aires, the same city, the same country. That means for me that was so shocking that this tragedy transformed all my life. Only 2 days before the bombing, we come into the hospital because we have our third child, Talia, that was on Friday before the bombing. On Monday at 10 a.m., we have the bombing of the AMIA. Was the same time that we are going out from the hospital with the little baby. And then I come back home with my wife, Gabriela, and Talia. And I left them in the apartment. I am go to the Jewish headquarters that was ruins. Immediately, I take my position in the morgue, the recognition of the bodies of each of the families. That was really, really hard, really very, very hard. But only 2 weeks later from that, we can stay in silence. We can all be part of the people that are complaining. We need to do something. And then we create Memoria Activa that you share in the introduction. That was a public demonstration in front of the Supreme Court to say that we are ready to pursue the justice. And then, for me, this is the Jewish answer. You know, we have tragedies along all our history. We are the people of the book, like today, Shavuot, but we are the people of the collective memory. Our memory is the reservoir to learn how we can stand and face any challenge. Because of that, I believe that the Jewish people, we are not survivors. We are resilient people. And became resilient people, how we can learn and teach from the actions that any tragedy is so sad, but also bring us some opportunities. For me, it was the opportunity, first of all, to build a new Jewish day school. 1 year later of the bombing of the AMIA, we opened a new school in Buenos Aires. Open for me also the possibility to integrate myself with the vision of the prophet of Israel, to share with all the Argentinian society that we are not victims. We are part of a country that we don't have security. And like you said, the impunity, 26 years, and we don't know who make it, and we don't have the justice that every country needed. It's not a Jewish agenda. It's the general agenda of the humankind. And this is, for me, the mission of the Jewish people, to raise the voice and to build and to fix. And letaken olam b'malchut Shaddai. We need to fix the world in the name of God.
So your rabbinate is very much marked and is very significant for your activism out in the street, quite literally out in the street. And as I said in the introduction, you've been Minister of the Environment and Sustainable Development. You have attended conferences on climate change. And I know you consider this one of the most important, if not the most important issues that we need to confront at the moment. And I think very much the issue of climate change has had a sort of veil drawn over it by COVID-19, by the coronavirus. I was wondering how you would respond to those critics who argue that rabbis shouldn't get involved in politics.
I think that every rabbi is a politician. The difference that if we make politics, like for me, is a sacred activity, you know, because we can't confuse the politics to change the reality with the politician that we have. All the people criticize the politicians. I think that it's right, because there are a lot of problems with politicians. But politics is something that also our Jewish tradition teaches, to be involved, to be proactive, to change the thing. And then we are talking all the time. and also in the liberal reform movement, Tikkun Atzmi, the Tikkun Am, Tikkun Olam, all the things that we need to fix. It's impossible to fix if we don't have a strategic planning and also some politics. Some politics to build inside the community, some politics to integrate the community in the world society, and also to be a citizen. This is not a party politics, but it's a citizen. It's a political actor, not because he votes, because he is committed to the public affairs, because the public's affairs is not from the government, it's not from the politician, it's from the good willing of all the community, the extended community that is for us, the society. And that's right, I was honored by President Macri to take the position of Minister of Environment and Sustainable Development. And you know, this is one of the most clear things how politics, rabbinic vocation, and Jewish values come together. Because I feel like small Noah trying to build the ark, because climate change is like what we learn and we teach from the Torah. Climate change is only like the red light that said, warning, this is not sustainable. You can't do this with the environment. You can't do this with the blessing of the nature. You are not the owner. You are who received the possibility to all of this. And you said it, COVID, the pandemic, stop us. And you can see how the nature helps itself with the pollution, with the rivers, with the nature, all the animals that come back when the human being stops. And this is part of our biblical, Jewish, and universal teaching. We have only one house. This is our common house. The creation is for us a gift. It's a blessing. And we need to keep our brothers, and also we need to keep our house.
I think you're absolutely right about nature sort of healing itself in some sort of way. I want to come back to that, but I just saw a question on the chat asking, is Rabbi Sergio in Argentina at the moment? And the answer to that is yes, of course. He probably hasn't quite reached Shabbat yet, but we're a few hours ahead of you, Sergio.
Yeah.
But please do post your questions for Rabbi Sergio on the chat. We'd love to hear from you wherever you are in the world. Please do. I just want to follow that up, what you were saying about seeing nature renew itself during this period of the COVID virus. Do you think that we have the strength and the resilience, as you spoke about, to build on that rather than to revert to where we were before? Isn't there a danger that we may well revert and abuse nature because, I mean, in our own country, we have a prime minister who's telling us to get in our cars rather than use public transport. My fear is that we're going to pollute the world even more intensely after COVID-19 because of the dangers of being out and about on public transport. What do you think about that?
We have good news and bad news. The good news are our children, the youth. They are all in with this agenda. For them, it's clear that the only way that we can go to the future is to be sustainable. And to be sustainable is not the big deal, green world. First of all, is to change your personal habits. What you eat, how you consume, how you use the energy, how you use the transportation. And the good thing from our children, the youth generation, that they change by themselves and they choose to go to this direction. The bad news, that they don't take right now the government of the countries and the nations They are not the political leaders. But it's a thing of time. I think that a new generation can reverse and change the way that we are doing things, because we can't continue with the business as usual. We need to change. And I think that the balance between that we need to recognize what we abuse and profane from the nature, and to give to other children the possibility not only to criticize what we do, to get solutions. And the solution to the sustainability is, first of all, a cultural issue to change your habits, because the consumer have the power, because he changed the market. And if we don't change economics balance, we can't change the environment and the sustainability. And also an ethical issue, because when we are talking about climate change, we are not talking about a technical agenda. It's technical knowledge, but it's not a technical agenda. It's an ethical one. We are talking here about human rights. We are talking here about the human quality of life. And also we are talking here about tzedakah, the social justice. Because when you profane and you destroy the environment, the poor people, the needed people, the vulnerable people lost everything. And then I think that is an issue of the human dignity, and also to respect the creation. And I believe that we can change, and it's part of our new agenda of the Tikkun Olam project.
Can I follow that up with a question about your new role as president of the World Union for Progressive Judaism, which Mazal Tov. What would you like our agenda to be in the future? The World Union, I know you don't like, well, here's a question from Elliot Karstadt. What role do you think the World Union for Progressive Judaism can play? So just anticipating my question to you, what role can the World Union play on this agenda, do you think?
We have a huge challenge here, because the World Union is not an umbrella. It's not like the federation that say the World Union is the reform, liberal, progressive, reconstructionist, progressive world. We need to become the network of connections. And then we need to change the position. We are not on the top. For us, on the top are the local communities. For us is how we can serve the local community, to support and to back them. Like you, the people that are working every day. That for us is not a structural organizational denomination. I respect denomination and don't believe in denominations. I think that we believe in actions, in concrete programs, in Jewish liberal progressive education. I believe that we have the power on the field. And then we need to build the platform to deliver contents, to build connection, to bring new opportunities to the collaboration, and also to build the round table. That means the richness of the biodiversity of the Jewish people. In every country, in every language, in every culture, we have different voices. And this is the strength of the Jewish people. Also, we need to open some room to new countries to be involved. And then not only to have this polarization that the strong voices, the American Reform community and Israel, that is so important for us. We need more proactive alternatives to Europe, the new Europe progressive community. We need from different parts of the world. And our mission, that for me it's clear, is to open new opportunities to more Jewish people to become part of this extended family. We can't wait. We need to go out. We need to outreach. And for us, Judaism is not only religion. It's clear that we have a position in the religion track, but we have different alternatives. And we need to put also in the discussion what is the place of Israel. For us, it's central that to be a liberal, reform, progressive Jew means that we are Zionists. And also that we need to be aware that now the new wave is to be anti-Semitism is anti-Zionism. And then we need to be there very clear that every Jew, we can have different opinions about the government of Israel. This is right. But we need to sustain and support the state of Israel. This is the difference between the government and the state.
So it would be very tempting to follow that discussion with you, but I want to ask you something a little more personal, if I may, because a few days ago you told me when we spoke that your Hebrew name is Sinai, like the mountain, which seems rather appropriate for this celebration of Shavuot, as Man Matan Toratenu, the season of the giving of the Torah. But I think you were named not after the mountain, but after Rav Yosef, or in another source, Rabbi Eliezer in the Talmud, because both are given this epithet, Sinai, because of their encyclopedic knowledge of the traditions. And they're distinguished from their contemporaries, Rabbah and Rabbi Elazar, who, in contrast, are called Oker Harim, the uprooter of mountains, because they are exceptionally skillful in argumentation. So I wanted to ask you, are you a Sinai? Do you have encyclopedic knowledge? Or perhaps you'll interpret that differently. Or are you an Oker Harim, an uprooter of mountains?
Thank you, Alex, because you bring here all the Talmudic sources of my name. That is so interesting. You know, I think that I take my low profile about the name. For me, my name comes from my grandparents. They gave me this name because one, the father of my mother was a cantor in Poland, and his name was Sinai. And the father of my father was a rabbi in Poland. And I have the two names, that is Sinai and Aryeh. But I think that I was honored by the name, you know, because we need to respect our given name. And also we need to work very hard to achieve our name. That means that it's not the same that we receive when we're born. That is also is part of the Jewish tradition, that we have at least three names. The first one that our parents give us, the second one that we need to work to achieve it. That means what we are doing with your life, the time that we are here. And the third one, what we live, what is the name that the people will remember us. And for me, the commitment is to honor my given name, working very hard every day to receive the new name related to my actions. And I believe that I can give some legacy, not only for my kids. I feel that this is the vocation of every Jewish leader, not to think in his home family, to transform the Jewish people like the extended family, and to pursue how the values and our tradition is in the hand of the next generation.
Sergio, we have a question from my colleague here in London at the Liberal Jewish Synagogue, Rabbi Ilana Dalal. What is the Jewish text that most informs your commitment to environmental advocacy?
You know, I come back to Noah, because I think that was so important that is also connected to the Ten Commandments, to today. Because when we have with Noah that God decided to destroy the world and humanity. He agreed to give to Noah the possibility to seal a covenant, because we have with Noah a covenant. There are 7 rules that we need to fulfill like humanity: to respect the nature, to respect the human being, to respect the life. And then we have later the upgrade with Moses, when we received the 10 Commandments. And you know, it's very interesting because in the 2 texts, for me, from Noah and Moses, in the 2 cases which we have in the Bible, in the Torah, a quarantine. Noah stayed 40 days in the ark, and Moses stayed 40 days on Mount Sinai. But when they come back, everything changed for us. From Noah, that is my inspiration, to keep the environment and to be part of this common house. From that we are not only the family of the son of Israel that Yaakov named. He changed his names from Yaakov to Israel. But only today, when we are all of us like only one heart to receive the Torah, we became a nation. We moved from a tribe, a family, a biography, to a nation with the commitment of the Torah. And I think that the environment and bad heat, that is not to make suffer, not the nature, not the every expression of life, is an ethical commitment for our sacred text and our commitment to keep the dignity of every human being.
So we have another, thank you for that. We have another question. I don't know if we can see it up on the chat, from Rabbi Helen Freeman from West London Synagogue, senior rabbi there. She says, our synagogue has a green team to encourage ecological mitzvot. Where should we begin to show members how to counter climate change and infuse the community?
I think that it's great to translate the general agenda, the global agenda, to very concrete local actions. And I congratulate that you have this green team, because the only way that we can change is not from top to down. We need to build down to top. That means it's a long way, because it's an educational strategy, change of culture, change of habits, but the only way that we can change. Sustainability, we can't do that in the world, in a country. We need to build with the neighbors. We need to build in our house, in our communities. And I think that this is the smart way to change. This activism is part of our advocacy, how you can use your text, your tradition, your institutions to be a proactive member of the society and a global citizen that take local responsibilities.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions coming up from those who are tuning in here? Sergio, I want to just pursue the question about the World Union for a moment with you while we see if there are any more questions. We are a global movement. I like very much what you said about the communities being on the top rather than a sort of hierarchy. If you could sort of encapsulate a vision for the next 10 or 20 years for the World Union, this puts you on the spot, I think, a bit. What would that vision be? How would you express that? And our vision as progressive Jews, liberal Jews.
I believe that my dream is to become a global networking that every community feels, that is the proactive member of the change of this present to become the future. That means that we don't wait the future. We are building the future. And the way that we can build it is to respect the autonomy and the sovereignty of each community, but with the strength of the network that support every one of us. That means a round table that is symmetric dialogue without hierarchy. Everyone have a place, everyone have a seat, everyone have a seat to say, this is my voice, I belong to this family. To empower and to support each of us on the concrete action on the field, because the world is also a collective imaginarium. You can touch the world. You can change the world if you accumulate different kind of actions. And my vision is that I want to feel that every community that belongs to this network, that belongs to the World Union, that belongs to the network. The World Union is like a server of the net. That means to create with the interchange, to create with the synergy, to create with the collaboration, content, programs, training, to raise the next generation of leaders, lay people, professionals, and also to face the challenge. We can use the same categories and we can use the same tools that we used 10 or 20 years ago. We need to change it. And then if I need to summarize and to say one thing, one word, how I envision the future of the World Union, we need to lead in the Jewish world that we are the Judaism of innovation. For me, the key word of our identity is innovation. And like Israel is the startup nation, the World Union and the Jewish liberal progressive Judaism must be the startup Judaism to face the future.
Thank you. And I put you on the spot there. We've got two questions that have come in. The first question from Kevin Derville says, Mazel Tov on President of the World Union. Now, just if I slip in something here, you told me that there are two individuals who inspired you. One was Albert Einstein, and the other one is the current Pope. And this question is about the current Pope, who is one of your countrymen. What do you think your Argentinian background brings in particular in terms of leadership, compassion, and insights? This is about you really then.
Yeah, I think from the first question about people that inspire me, the two examples come from my personal history, because when we talked a few days ago about science, about my technical academical background, I choose Albert Einstein because he started in physics and mathematics and all the thing that he made really a revolution, but he was a very deep philosopher that raised the right question about the meaning of life and the universe. The second one was the Pope Francis, that in Argentina was the Cardinal Bergoglio, and he teach me that politics and spirituality comes together when you envision how you can use and not abuse for the power of the authority to change things to serve the people. Now, this leadership for me is like a role model, not because I feel or I think like him, but I respect him because he's really a spiritual leader that inspires in the world to make changes, and also in the agenda that we share. Also, when he published the Laudato Si, that means how we can need to keep the world, the nature, and the human beings. He have the courage to criticize the market, the politics, and the lack of leadership around the world.
I think we've got another question from Robert Feather.
Yeah.
If we can see that question. A question about how many Jews are there in Argentina?
This is a very interesting question, because depends of what is your Jewish approach to define who is Jews. Because how many? Okay, formally, if we take the formal definition, the halachic definition from the status quo of our community in Argentina, that is, we have in Argentina, we have the monopoly of the Orthodox establishment, like in Israel. We are talking to about 250,000 Jews. But for me, not because only I am Reform or liberal, because I take the standard of Israel, of the law of return. That means for me, we are 500,000. Why? Because for me, every Jew that want to be Jew, because he born from a mother or a father, or he born from a grandma or grandpa, but he's ready to take the commitment and the covenant, like we remember this night, to become Jews, we need to outreach and to invite him to be part. For me, the number is 500,000. We have a lot of work here in Argentina, in every place, because the formal numbers are lower, but the opportunity is higher. This is our work from the progressive movement, to go out and to outreach and to invite and to have really open mind, to give the opportunity to everyone that wants to take a serious commitment with the Jewish tradition to be part of us. And this is not modern. This is the very old tradition of the Jewish people from the Bible times, that we invite the girl, we invite the stranger, we invite the people to come into our community.
It's great to hear such an open-minded and inclusive point of view here. I think we may have time for one more question, which is from Rita Adler, also from London. Will you discourage people from attending conferences by plane? They can Zoom their meetings and so help the environment.
Yeah, Rita, okay, I think that there are a lot of new approaches that we achieved after the pandemic. This pandemic gave us two things. One, so hard how many people die and how we need to comfort the families. This is really sad. But the other thing is, human beings, we don't learn, only we learn in a limit. When we cross the limit, this is our nature, because in advance we can stop, but now we need to change. And also we discovered that the Zoom and the virtual connection is real. The virtual connection is real. We are together today. We are one in this connection. And if we can reduce pollution, and we can reduce to profane the nature, and then we learn different ways to be together, maybe we can reduce emissions, maybe we can reduce pollution, but the only way is with technology, and innovation. And this is important. It's not to stop to do the thing. It's to do the thing in another way and to change between sustainability and the future is how you can bring into the conversation innovation and technology, the community of knowledge. And I think that Israel is an excellent example with all the startups that can change the life of the people. And I think also that we need to become more sustainable because this is the future.
Rabbi Bergman, that really is all we have time for now, because our program for this tikkun is going to continue at 10 p.m. I want to say a huge thank you on behalf of hundreds of people who are watching this interview for your courage, for your advocacy, for your passion, for your openness, for your inclusiveness, your outreach, for your ideas and originality, for the message that you've given us this evening, for your compassion and for your leadership. And as you probably gather, all of us place great hopes on your leadership as president of the World Union for Progressive Judaism. And airplane flights apart, we hope soon that we might be able to meet in person. But on behalf of all of us, thank you so much to Rabbi Sergio Bergman, who, as somebody has written there, is a great inspiration. You have been a great inspiration to us. And I hope that you can hear and see in your imagination the standing ovation which you're getting tonight. So on behalf of all of us, thank you so much. And we hope that those of you who have been watching will join us at 10 p.m. for some of the events that have been put on by Rabbi Igor Zinkov and student Rabbi Elliot Karstadt from the Liberal Jewish Synagogue and West London Synagogue. Please do join us throughout the night and tomorrow morning for our service. So put your hands together, please, for Rabbi Bergman.
Thank you, Alex and Igor. Shabbat Shalom, Chag Sameach. I'm so happy to share with you and have a meaningful Leit Tikkun.
Shabbat Shalom and Chag Sameach. And here's Rabbi Igor Zinkov. Over to you, Igor.
Thank you very much. And I think that you saw so many comments with thanks, with the words of appreciation to you, Rabbi Bergman, and to you, Rabbi Wright. And I wanted to share with everybody who is watching this a story that's a few days ago when Rabbi Bergman, Rabbi Wright, and myself had a conversation to prepare for this talk. I had an initial plan to just put Rabbi Wright and Rabbi Bergman together in touch and then leave the meeting. But then when the conversation started, I couldn't leave because it was such a inspiring conversation, and I feel that this continued tonight for the rest of the night. We have prepared a program. So at 10 p.m. there will be 4 sessions in parallel. Please note that the session which is called New Reality for Social Action unfortunately had to be cancelled because the person who was going to lead this session is a bit under the weather and can't teach. And we wish you, Nick, if you are watching the service, refuah shlema and a speedy recovery from all of us. And however, we have 4 sessions in parallel. And Rabbi Bergman mentions that there should be a collaboration between different communities rather than umbrella organization uniting everybody. And in a way, there is a old good Jewish joke about a Jew who's got in a desert island, and in some time, in half a year, when he's got rescued, he's showing around and says, "This is the place where I sleep. This is the place where I eat, and this is my first synagogue. This is my second synagogue." And people ask this person, "Why do you have two synagogues?" "Well, this is my synagogue, and this is the synagogue which I will not put my feet into." And in a way, that's we've prepared a program which I believe will be interesting for everybody now. So we have the first session starting at 10, which is called Grave Decisions, Funerals in the Age of COVID, led by co-senior rabbis of West London Synagogue, Rabbi Helen Freeman and David Mitchell. And then we also have a talk by Dr. Emily Grossman on the topic of climate and ecological crisis. In a way, this will continue the conversation with Rabbi Sergio Bergman. The new reality for Shavuot at home, being at home, feeling at home, led by Harriet Goldenberg. And the new realities for Israel diaspora relations, led by Josh Weinberg from ARTSA, and this will continue the conversation about Israel diaspora relationship, which we already started. So let's take a few minutes break now, and see you shortly in the sessions. You should have received the information, the password for the full program on the website, and this page on the website has all Zoom links you need to join the session. See you shortly at sessions, and thank you very much again for everybody who is watching, participating in the service.